In recent months, events have begun unfolding in the automotive industry that just a few years ago seemed like pure science fiction. While most people continue to debate whether electric vehicles will be able to completely replace gasoline-powered cars, the world's largest technology and automotive companies are already looking much further ahead. They are not simply considering a new powertrain, but a fundamentally new way of transportation. And if industry sources are to be believed, the era of traditional automobiles may be much shorter than many people think. According to several insiders connected to the American automotive industry, Ford has begun work on an extremely unusual project. It involves a next-generation vehicle concept that is being considered inside the company as one of the most ambitious projects of recent decades. Some sources claim that it could become Ford's first flying pickup truck, designed in the style of the legendary F-Series lineup. There has been no official confirmation so far, but the idea itself looks far more realistic than it did even 5 years ago. The reason is simple. The world has reached a point where the existing transportation system is beginning to face fundamental limitations. Cities are becoming larger, urban populations are growing. The number of vehicles on the roads is increasing faster than infrastructure can develop. Millions of people spend hours in traffic jams every day. In some megacities, the average speed of movement during rush hour is already approaching the speed of a cyclist. And this is happening despite the tens of billions of dollars that governments invest every year into expanding roads and building new interchanges. Engineers have long understood that roads cannot be expanded forever. Sooner or later, humanity will face a limit. That is why more and more companies are beginning to look upward, literally upward. The airspace above cities remains almost empty compared with overcrowded roads, and if it becomes possible to create safe, relatively affordable, and mass-produced flying transportation, it could become the biggest transportation revolution since the invention of the automobile. At first glance, the idea seems crazy, but if you look more closely at what is happening, it becomes clear that the world's largest companies have already been moving in this direction for years. Over the past decade, tens of billions of dollars have been invested into the development of electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. Such projects are being developed by companies in the United States, China, Europe, and the Middle East. Some have already conducted real test flights. Others are preparing for the commercial launch of air taxi services. In many ways, we are witnessing the same situation that existed at the beginning of the 20th century with automobiles. Back then, most people considered cars an expensive toy for the wealthy. Horses seemed much more practical. But within just a few decades, everything changed completely. Today, many experts believe history could repeat itself. According to sources, discussions about a potential Ford flying pickup truck did not begin by accident. The company is closely monitoring the development of autonomous driving technologies, high-power electric motors, new types of batteries, and ultra-light composite materials. It is precisely the combination of these technologies that is making such a project technically possible for the first time. If we imagine such a vehicle of the future, it would be very different from modern cars. Most likely, it would be a hybrid between an automobile and an aircraft. Such transportation could move on regular roads but, when necessary, take off and overcome congested sections of a route through the air. Some concepts suggest using multiple electric rotors distributed across the body. Others involve folding wings or specialized ducted fans. Interestingly, such transportation could solve not only the problem of traffic congestion, it could completely transform logistics. Imagine a farm hundreds of kilometers away from the nearest city. Today, delivering equipment or cargo requires hours of travel on roads. A flying pickup truck could cover such distances along a direct route. This would mean shorter delivery times, lower costs, and fundamentally new opportunities for businesses. But even more interesting are the potential consequences for urban environments. If such transportation becomes widespread, the very architecture of cities will change. Special landing platforms will appear on the rooftops of buildings. New residential complexes will be designed with air transportation in mind. Shopping centers could have their own aerial terminals. Parking lots may gradually transform into multi-level vertical takeoff and landing hubs. Of course, the main question arises: when could all of this become reality? Most analysts agree that mass adoption of such vehicles should not be expected within the next few years. Even if Ford is truly working on such a project, it is most likely part of a long-term strategy. However, the first demonstration concepts could appear much earlier. Some specialists believe that the first full-scale prototypes of next-generation consumer flying vehicles could be presented by the end of this decade. Limited commercial sales could begin in the early 2030s. The first models will almost certainly be extremely expensive. Prices could range from $200,000 to $500,000 per unit. However, history shows that as production scales up, the cost of such technologies usually drops dramatically. Electric vehicles are a good example. Just 15 years ago, they were seen as a niche technology. Today, millions are sold worldwide. Flying vehicles could follow a similar path. But along with the opportunities come serious challenges. The most obvious one is safety. If an engine failure on the road often simply results in a vehicle stopping, the consequences in the air could be far more serious. That is why future flying vehicles will require multiple layers of system redundancy. Each engine could potentially be backed up by several independent modules. There will likely be automatic emergency landing systems, intelligent collision avoidance algorithms, and constant data exchange between vehicles. An equally serious challenge will be regulation. Today, airspace is controlled by aviation authorities. But what happens if tens of thousands of flying vehicles are simultaneously operating above a major city? A completely new air traffic management system will be required. Many experts believe that solving such a challenge will be impossible without artificial intelligence. That is why AI development is becoming one of the key factors in the future transportation revolution. Autonomous systems will be able to calculate optimal routes, avoid collisions, and coordinate the movement of millions of vehicles simultaneously. Essentially, this means creating an aerial equivalent of the internet. But instead of transmitting data, it will move people and cargo. Another major issue is infrastructure. Mass adoption of such vehicles will require thousands of new facilities, next-generation charging stations, air terminals, traffic management systems, maintenance centers. All of this represents a massive market worth hundreds of billions of dollars. It is no surprise that interest in this sector comes not only from automotive companies, technology giants, battery manufacturers, aerospace corporations, and even construction companies are gradually entering the field. Everyone understands that what is at stake could be the creation of a new global-scale industry. But the most interesting part is that flying vehicles could change not only transportation, they could change the very geography of how people live. If the journey to work takes not an hour by road, but 10 minutes through the air, many people will want to live much farther away from major cities. This could lead to the development of new districts, the emergence of entire aerial suburbs, and a redistribution of population. Therefore, when rumors appear that Ford is working on a flying pickup truck, it is not just about a new vehicle. It is about a potential symbol of the next transportation era. The same way Henry Ford's first mass-produced automobile once became a symbol of a new age. Of course, today it is still impossible to say how quickly such technologies will become part of everyday life. History knows many projects that looked promising but never became widely adopted. However, one thing is already clear. The discussion about the future of transportation is no longer limited to the debate between gasoline and electricity. The next stage could be far more radical. Perhaps in 20 years, children will look at today's traffic jams, the same way we look at photographs of cities filled with horse-drawn carriages, as something belonging to the past, as an era that once seemed permanent but unexpectedly ended under the pressure of new technologies. And if the insider information turns out to be even partially correct, then somewhere right now, Ford engineers may already be working on a machine that one day will rise into the sky and forever change our understanding of what an automobile can be. However, the most interesting part begins when analysts try to imagine not the flying vehicle itself, but the world that will emerge after its mass adoption. And this is where the forecasts become truly impressive. Many experts believe that the transportation revolution caused by the emergence of flying cars could be even more significant than the transition from horses to automobiles a century ago. The reason is that the modern economy is literally built around roads, Cities, warehouses, logistics centers, retail networks, residential areas, everything was designed around the idea that people move across the ground. If a significant part of transportation can move into the air, almost everything will change. According to industry insiders, this is exactly why many automotive companies are already creating specialized research divisions focused not only on developing the aircraft themselves, but also on studying the infrastructure of the future. Some internal reports suggest that the first cities adapted for aerial transportation could appear as early as the 2030s. This would involve dedicated air corridors, intelligent navigation systems, and automated landing platforms located literally every few kilometers. Imagine the morning of an ordinary person in 2040. Instead of leaving home and sitting in traffic for 40 minutes, they go up to the roof of their residential complex. There is a compact landing platform there. Their personal vehicle automatically calculates the route, receives approval from the air traffic management system, and lifts into the air within seconds. While the passenger drinks coffee and reads the news, artificial intelligence completely controls the flight. 10 minutes later, the person is already on the other side of the city. Today, such a scenario sounds like science fiction, but these models are increasingly being discussed at industry conferences. It is also interesting that a potential Ford flying pickup could become especially valuable in rural areas. Unlike urban air taxis, a pickup truck would have completely different purposes: transporting cargo, working on construction sites, delivering equipment to remote areas, assisting emergency services. That is why some sources claim that Ford is considering the concept of a heavy-duty multi-purpose aerial vehicle capable of carrying hundreds of kilograms of payload. If such a project really exists, it could use technologies that are now being developed for next-generation aviation. For example, distributed electric propulsion. Instead of one large engine, the vehicle could have 10, 12, or even 16 smaller motors. This configuration improves safety and allows the aircraft to remain controllable, even if several motors fail at the same time. But another question arises: what will happen to traditional cars? Will they disappear completely? Most experts believe they will not. Just as airplanes did not replace cars, flying transportation will not eliminate ground vehicles. Most likely, they will coexist for many decades. For short trips around the local area, people will continue using regular cars. For long-distance travel and avoiding traffic congestion, aerial vehicles will be used. Eventually, a hybrid transportation ecosystem will emerge, where each type of transport occupies its own role. At the same time, major changes could affect the real estate market. Analysts from major investment banks are already discussing scenarios in which flying transportation could dramatically increase the value of land outside major cities. If reaching the city center takes 15 minutes regardless of distance, people may begin moving to more comfortable areas in large numbers. This could completely change the development map of metropolitan regions. There is also another factor that often receives less attention: ecology. Many modern cities suffer from air pollution. Despite the gradual transition to electric vehicles, the problem remains serious. Next-generation flying cars will almost certainly be electric. This means no exhaust emissions. Of course, there will be the issue of noise, but manufacturers are already working on ultra-quiet electric motors and new aerodynamic configurations. According to industry sources, some experimental aircraft already demonstrate a noise level significantly lower than that of traditional helicopters. This is critically important. No one will allow thousands of aerial vehicles to fly over a city if they create constant noise. That is why the fight to reduce noise is becoming one of the main engineering challenges. Special attention should be paid to China. Many experts believe that Chinese companies could become the first mass producers of flying cars. The reason is simple: massive state investment in new technologies and the ability to scale production rapidly. In recent years, Chinese developers have presented several prototypes of aerial vehicles that are already undergoing real-world testing. This means that in the coming years, a new global race may begin. Just as the United States and China compete in artificial intelligence, semiconductors, and space, they may begin a struggle for leadership in the field of aerial transportation. For Washington, this is becoming a matter of technological leadership. For Beijing, it is an opportunity to dominate a future market worth trillions of dollars. This is precisely why rumors around Ford attract so much attention. Many analysts believe that American automotive giants cannot afford to lose this race. If aerial transport truly becomes the next stage of industrial development, companies that fall behind risk losing positions that took decades to build. But the more opportunities this new technology opens up, the more safety questions arise. Imagine a situation where tens of thousands of flying cars are simultaneously operating above a major city. What happens in the case of a massive navigation system failure? How can the transport be protected from cyber attacks? What should be done in extreme weather conditions? Many engineers are convinced that artificial intelligence will become the key safety element. Humans are simply not capable of controlling such a complex system. Computers will track the position of every vehicle in real time, predict routes several minutes ahead, and automatically prevent any potential collisions. In fact, the future transportation network will resemble a giant digital organism. Every vehicle will become part of a unified system. Every maneuver will be coordinated with millions of other vehicles. And this is why the development of AI and the development of aerial transport are increasingly seen as interconnected processes. Interestingly, some experts go even further. They suggest that flying cars will become an intermediate stage before the emergence of a completely new transportation environment. In the long term, ultra-fast aerial corridors between cities, autonomous cargo platforms, and even personal transport capsules capable of automatically docking with different transport systems may appear. If such a scenario is realized, then by mid-century humanity could obtain a transportation system that would look like science fiction even by today's standards. And although all of this still remains speculative, the very fact that major corporations are beginning to invest in such projects says a lot. Therefore, the main question today is no longer whether flying cars will appear at all. The main question is when they will become cheap, safe, and convenient enough to transition from an expensive technological toy into everyday transportation for millions of people. If the information about Ford's secret project is even partially accurate, then we may be witnessing the very first steps toward this new era. An era in which the automobile is no longer bound to roads. An era in which the boundary between car and aircraft gradually begins to disappear. And an era capable of transforming not only the transport industry, but the very lifestyle of billions of people around the world. However, there is another aspect that is spoken about far less often today, but which may turn out to be one of the most important. It concerns the pace of transport technology evolution. For most of the 20th century, the automotive industry developed relatively slowly. New generations of cars appeared every few years, while fundamental changes took decades. Today, however, the pace of technological progress has accelerated dramatically. Artificial intelligence, new materials, batteries, automation of production, and software are now evolving simultaneously, reinforcing each other. That is why some analysts believe the transition to aerial transport could happen much faster than skeptics expect. Particularly notable is the fact that more and more young engineers are entering the automotive industry from aviation, robotics, and aerospace sectors. The boundaries between industries are gradually blurring. Companies no longer see the automobile as merely a four-wheeled vehicle. It is now a high-tech platform capable of operating on the ground, interacting with digital infrastructure, and possibly in the future even taking to the skies. That is why many experts believe the next generation of transport will not be designed by traditional automotive engineers alone, but by teams combining specialists from multiple fields. Looking at the situation globally, it becomes clear that this is not just about a new type of vehicle. Humanity may, in fact, be on the verge of creating a third dimension of transportation. The first dimension was roads. The second was railways and high-speed corridors. Now there is the possibility of using airspace as actively as streets and highways are used today. This opens entirely new opportunities for the economy, trade, medicine, rescue operations, and even tourism. For this reason, even the most cautious analysts acknowledge that the likelihood of seeing the first truly mass-market flying cars within the next 20 years is increasing. The first models may be expensive, imperfect and accessible only to a limited group of buyers. They may require years of testing, regulation, and technical refinement. But the overall direction is already becoming clear. That is why rumors about Ford's potential flying pickup truck are attracting so much attention not only from car enthusiasts, but also from investors, engineers, and governments around the world. Because if even part of these predictions turns out to be correct, then in a few decades, historians may look back at the present moment as the beginning of a new transport era. An era in which humanity first seriously attempted to free the automobile from roads and open the sky to it. And perhaps, right now, inside the secret research centers of the world's largest companies, technologies are already being developed that will one day make that future real.